All right, this lesson is on Newton's laws. And here's just a picture of one of the laws, the first law, inertia. An object at rest tends to stay at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. All right, so here are Newton's laws. The first law is the law dealing with inertia. The second law is dealing with acceleration, force, and mass. And the third law is the action-reaction law. We're going to talk a little bit about each one of these laws. So the first law is inertia. You're going to hear me talk about this a lot. This is where an object at rest, where it's going to remain at rest unless acted upon by another force. So something is going to be at rest unless something else causes it to move, pretty much. And the same is true for an object that's in motion. So an object that's in motion is going to stay in motion, it's going to keep going, unless acted upon by another force. Okay, so just to talk a little bit more about these. So remember that mass is the amount of matter in an object, and one of the things you're going to need to know is the more mass that an object has, the more inertia it's going to have, because bigger objects, things that are heavier, are going to be harder to move, and if it is moving, it is going to be harder to stop. So the more mass, the more inertia. All right, the second law. Before we talk a little bit more about this, you need to know your definition. So acceleration, if you remember, the formula is the change in velocity over the change in time. Mass is the amount of matter in an object once again. So the second law has to do with the formula down at the bottom here. So if you see, you need to know this. Force is equal to mass times acceleration. So depending the object, the mass and the acceleration are going to affect the force. So let's first talk about acceleration and force. So the more force you place on an object, the more it will accelerate. If you can just think through this, think about pushing an object. The more force you put on the object, the more it's going to accelerate. It makes sense. Acceleration and mass. And we're talking about inertia here, throwing that back in. So the more mass or inertia that an object has, the more force is going to take to accelerate that object. So the bigger it is, the harder it is going to be to push or pull it. Some of you will get this. All right, the third law, and we're going to do an activity with the third law. It's the action-reaction law. This is saying that forces are always produced in pairs, which we've learned that, and it's opposite in direction and equal in strength. We talked about this already when we talked about balanced and unbalanced forces. So for every force, there is going to be an equal and an opposite force. All right, so let's look at this. The truck is in motion. What is the force that causes it to stop? All right, you're right. The push of the stopped car. The car is at rest, as you see. What is the force that's going to cause that car to move? The push of the truck. What about the ladder on top of the truck? The ladder is in motion because the truck is in motion. When the truck stops, that ladder is going to stay in motion. The truck is not stopped by the force of the car. The truck is stopped by the force of the car, but the ladder is not. So what is that force that's going to stop the ladder? Gravity. And you're seeing all of the laws that we've talked about coming into play here. An object's going to stay in motion unless acted upon by another force. Then you've also got action-reaction. So the truck is in motion, the car is at rest. How do each of these vehicles accelerate? The truck is going to stop moving, and the car is going to start moving. Which one of these will be hardest to accelerate? Think about what we talked about. The truck, because it has the most mass. The more mass, the more inertia. Why does the car move when it is hit by the truck? The heavy and the moving truck has more force than the small at-rest car. Are you right? Why does the truck stop moving when it hits the car? The force of the car pushes back on the truck, plus the force of friction between the massive truck and the road slow down and stop the truck. The truck is the car, and action force stops the truck. What is the equal and opposite reaction force? The force that pushes the car forward.